The cursed girl was not brought before the court to be healed. She was brought to prove that something inside her was dead. Seraphina Vale knelt in the moon circle beneath the open roof of Blackmoor Hall, wrists bound with silver chain, white ceremonial robes soaked at the hem from the snow. Around her, every alpha house in the kingdom stood watching. Wolf banners hung from black pillars. Moon priests whispered behind bone masks. Noblewomen leaned forward with cruel curiosity, waiting to see whether the girl with the dead wolf would finally break. At the top of the hall, Alpha King Darius Vare sat on a throne, carved from black antler and moonstone. He did not look bored. That would have been kinder. He looked controlled, cold, dangerously still. His dark hair fell over one side of his face, and his golden eyes held the same merciless patience that had made border packs surrender without battle. At his feet lay his shadow wolf, huge, black, silent, and wrong. It should have moved like a living beast. Instead, it breathed shallowly, as if each breath had to be dragged from a grave. Seraphina noticed. No one else did. They were too busy staring at her. High Priestess Merwin Sol stepped into the moon circle, carrying a silver cup filled with glowing red liquid. Moonblood. Sacred blood drawn from the old lunar altar, used only for three things: crowning alphas, sealing mate bonds, and exposing cursed wolves. Tonight, it was for her. Seraphina Vale, Merwin said, voice smooth and sharp. Daughter of no honored house, bearer of the stillborn wolf, you stand accused of carrying death inside living skin. A ripple moved through the court. Stillborn wolf, corpse wolf, dead bond girl. Seraphina had heard every name since childhood. She kept her head lifted. That was all she had. Her wolf had never answered, never howled, never shifted beneath her bones. The healers said it died before birth but remained sealed inside her, making her unnatural. Children had refused to sleep near her. Mothers pulled sons away from her shadow. Priests washed the floor after she crossed temple stone. But Seraphina had never felt dead inside. Only quiet. Too quiet. Like something sleeping beneath a frozen lake. Merwin raised the cup. If her wolf is truly dead, the moonblood will reveal rot. If she is clean, nothing will answer. If she carries forbidden power, the priestess let the silence finish the sentence. Darius finally spoke. Then, his voice was low, but the entire hall heard it. Merwin turned toward him. Then she must be burned before the corpse, wolf wakes. Seraphina's hands tightened around the chain. The king's eyes shifted to her. For one breath, their gazes met. She expected disgust. Instead, she saw recognition. Not soft, not kind, almost angry, as if looking at her hurt him, and he blamed her for it. Lady Isolde Varn, the noblewoman chosen by the council to become his future Luna, stood beside the throne in pale gold. Beautiful, perfect, untouched by shame. She lowered her voice, but Seraphina heard. My king, delay will only make the court question your strength. Darius's jaw tightened. The shadow wolf at his feet gave a sound too broken to be a growl. Seraphina looked at it again. Its golden eyes were fixed on her, not hostile, desperate. Merwin noticed. Her face sharpened. Begin. Two guards forced Seraphina's head back. She fought once. Only once. The chain cut into her wrists, the court murmured. Someone laughed softly. Darius rose from his throne so suddenly the sound stopped. Do not bruise her, he said. The hall froze. Seraphina froze too. Merwin bowed her head. Of course, your majesty. But her eyes had changed. She had seen what Seraphina had seen. The king cared, or feared, maybe both. Merwin pressed the moonblood cup against Seraphina's lips. Drink. Seraphina looked at Darius. He did not stop it. That was the first wound between them. Not what he did. What he allowed. So she drank. The moonblood touched her tongue like fire and winter at once. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The court leaned closer. Marvin smiled. Then Seraphina's chest split with pain. She arched backward, silver chain snapping tight around her wrists. The moon circle burned red beneath her knees. Every candle in Blackmoor Hall blew out at once. Something screamed inside her. Not from her throat, from deeper. From the sealed place where everyone had told her death lived. The scream tore through the hall. Every alpha fell to one knee. Not by choice, not by command. Their wolves forced them down. Darius staggered from the throne, one hand gripping the armrest. His shadow wolf rose for the first time, black fur smoking, golden eyes wide with terror and longing. Seraphina's robes lifted in a storm of silver light. Behind her, above her, through her, a wolf began to form. Massive, silver black, half spirit, half flesh. Its ribcage glowed with moonfire. Its jaws opened in a scream that cracked the moonstone floor. Its eyes were not dead. They were furious. Merwin stumbled back. Impossible. The ghost wolf lowered its head over Seraphina like a shield. Then it looked directly at Darius. The king dropped to one knee. This time, not because the wolf forced him, because his own shadow wolf had collapsed before Seraphina, trembling. The silver-black wolf spoke through every bond in the hall. Not dead. The words struck like thunder. Seraphina gasped, clutching her chest. The wolf spoke again. Stolen. The court erupted. Lady Isolde went pale. Merwin recovered first. Seize her. The corpse wolf has awakened. No guard moved. They could not. Their wolves were still kneeling. Darius stood slowly, face carved from shock and rage. Who stole it? Merwin's eyes flashed toward him. Your Majesty, this is a curse trick. The girl's wolf is corrupted. The silver-black wolf snarled. Darius's shadow wolf answered. For one impossible moment, both wolves sounded like one beast torn apart. Seraphina felt it then a pull from her chest to Darius's dying wolf. A wound that was not hers alone. A chain stretched between them, buried beneath years of silence. Darius felt it too. His golden eyes locked on her, not with tenderness, with accusation. What are you? He demanded. The question should have frightened her. Instead, anger rose through the pain. Seraphina stood on shaking legs, broken silver chain hanging from her wrists, the awakened wolf burning behind her. I was about to ask you the same thing. The court gasped. No one spoke to the Alpha King that way. Darius stepped into the moon circle. The closer he came, the brighter her wolf burned. His shadow wolf crawled after him, wounded and desperate, trying to reach the silver-black spirit behind Seraphina. Merwin shouted, "Do not approach her." Darius stopped. Not because he obeyed, because the old priestess sounded afraid. He turned his head slowly. Why? Merwin's face went still. Too still. Seraphina saw it. So did Darius. The Moonblood cup cracked in Merwin's hand. Red light spilled across the floor, flowing not toward Seraphina, but toward the king's shadow wolf. The dying beast lowered its head and whispered one word through the bond. Half. Darius vent pale. Seraphina's awakened wolf pressed closer to her back, its breath cold against her neck. Then the moon above Blackmoor Hall turned black. A hidden seal appeared on Seraphina's chest, burning through her robe, half of a wolf crown, broken down the center. The other half appeared over Darius's heart. The court screamed. Merwin whispered, "The severed mate, bond." Darius drew his sword. But he did not point it at Seraphina. He pointed it at the priestess. What did you do? The sword pointed at High Priestess Merwin, and Blackmoor Hall forgot how to breathe. Darius stood in the moon circle, with the broken half-crown burning over his heart, his blade steady, his golden eyes fixed on the old priestess who had raised him in temple law since boyhood. What did you do? He asked again. Merwin did not look at the sword. She looked at Seraphina. That was how everyone knew the answer had always been in her body. Seraphina stood with torn white robes clinging to her skin, broken chains hanging from her wrists, the massive silver-black wolf burning behind her like a spirit dragged out of a grave. Pain still tore through her chest. The mark beneath her collarbone pulsed with half a crown, as if something ancient had been cut out of her and left open. Lady Isolde stepped beside the throne, pale but composed. My king, lower your blade. The girl's curse is manipulating the bond. Seraphina laughed once. It came out sharp and breathless. My curse? Every alpha in the hall was still on one knee. Some fought it, none rose. Their wolves knew what their pride refused to accept. Merwin lifted her chin. The girl carries a forbidden vessel. That is all. Her wolf was dead, until Moonblood fed it. The silver-black wolf snarled. Darius's shadow wolf answered from the floor. dragging itself toward Seraphina as if half its soul had just been found after years of starvation. Darius looked down at his own beast. For one moment, fear crossed his face. Not fear of Seraphina, fear of recognizing too much. He turned back to Merwin. "My wolf said half." Merwin's fingers tightened around the cracked Moonblood cup. "Dying wolves speak madness." "No," Seraphina said. Everyone looked at her. She took one step toward the priestess. The silver-black wolf moved with her, its huge head lowering over her shoulder. "My wolf was never dead," she said, voice shaking with anger. "You buried her." Merwin's mask hardened. "You know nothing. I know what it feels like to be called a grave while something living screams inside you." The hall went silent. Darius's jaw clenched. The words had struck him too. Seraphina saw it and hated that it mattered. He had let them force the cup to her lips. He had watched the court use her body as proof. Whatever pain he carried, he had still stood above her while she knelt. Merwin raised her hand toward the moon altar. "Restrain her." No guard moved. Their wolves would not let them. Isolde turned coldly toward the kneeling alphas. "Will all of you bow to a corpse?" The silver-black wolf opened its jaws. The sound that came out was not a howl. It was a memory. The moon circle flooded with silver light. The hall vanished. For a heartbeat, everyone saw a chamber beneath the old moon temple. Seraphina was there as a child, asleep on a stone altar, small hands curled near her face. Beside her stood Merwin, younger then, with black hair instead of silver. Darius was there too, no more than a boy, unconscious on another slab, a golden wolf shadow bleeding from his chest. Merwin held a curved moonblel. Lady Isolde's mother stood behind her with a bowl of red moonblood. Merwin spoke in the vision. "If the prince's wolf continues to bond with hers, the prophecy completes. He will belong to a cursed girl before he ever wears the crown." The woman beside her whispered, "Then sever it." Marvin cut. The boy's wolf screamed. The little girl's sleeping body arched. Half of Darius's wolf tore loose in a burst of gold-black fire and crashed into Seraphina's chest. Her own wolf wrapped around it, shielding it, and the two souls sealed together under her heart. Then Merwin burned the mark shut. The vision shattered. Seraphina staggered. Darius went still. The entire court stared at the priestess. Merwin's expression did not break. "That child would have ruined the throne," she said. Darius's voice came low. "That child was me. And I saved you. You butchered my wolf. I preserved your crown." Seraphina's silver-black wolf growled so deeply the moonstone pillars cracked. Darius moved toward Merwin, but Seraphina stepped in front of him. He stopped. Her eyes burned. "No, you do not get to make this only about you." His gaze sharpened. "Good. Let him feel it." She pointed to her chest. "You lost half a wolf. I was made into its prison. I was called cursed, dead, unnatural, untouchable. I grew up listening to people pity me for carrying a corpse, while your court fed on the lie." Darius did not answer. For once, the Alpha King had no command ready. Merwin smiled faintly. "And now, the corpse speaks with teeth. How poetic." Seraphina turned on her. The silver-black wolf lunged. Darius grabbed Seraphina's wrist before the spirit struck. The contact burned through both of them. Seraphina gasped. Darius did too. The two half-crown marks flared, and the moon above the hall turned darker, swallowing the stars around it. For one instant, Seraphina felt his wolf inside her own, starved, furious, reaching. And beneath that, something worse. A matebond. Not soft, not healed, not chosen. Severed, buried, bleeding. She ripped her wrist from his hand. "Do not touch me." Darius stepped back at once. The court saw it. The king, obeying the cursed girl's boundary. Isolde saw it too. Her face changed. Merwin used the moment. She threw the cracked Moonblood cup onto the floor. Red blood splashed across the moon circle and formed a black seal around Seraphina's feet. The silver-black wolf screamed. Darius's shadow wolf collapsed. Merwin lifted both hands. "By old moon law, a severed vessel must be returned to the temple before it devours the royal line." Black chains shot from the floor and wrapped around Seraphina's arms, throat, and chest. Darius struck one with his sword. The blade bounced back. Merwin's smile widened. You cannot cut what your own blood signed. The chains pulled Seraphina toward the altar. Pain tore through her chest as the seal tried to rip the awakened wolf back into sleep. Her knees hit the stone. The court watched in horror and fascination. Darius turned to the alphas still kneeling. Break the circle. None could move. Their wolves remained bowed to the awakened spirit. Seraphina clenched her teeth and looked at the silver-black wolf. Wake. The wolf's burning eyes turned toward her. Not dead. Not stolen. Mine. The word entered Seraphina like lightning. Her fingers closed around the chain at her throat. For the first time in her life, she did not ask whether the power inside her was a curse. She pulled. The black chain cracked. Merwin's eyes widened. Seraphina stood slowly, dragging the seal upward with her like a net tearing from the ground. Blood ran from her wrists. Moonfire blazed through the broken crown mark on her chest. Darius stared at her, as if he had just realized the prison was stronger than the jailers. The silver-black wolf rose behind her and screamed again. This time, the sound did not force the alphas down. It forced them to remember. Every alpha in the hall saw the night Merwin took their blood to bless Darius's crown. Every noble saw the temple sealing records beneath the altar. Every priest saw Isolde's house signing the severance rite. The court erupted. Isolde stepped backward. Darius turned toward her. Your house was there. Her voice trembled. I was a child. So was I, Seraphina said. The words cut deeper than accusation. Then, the moon altar split open. Beneath it lay a sealed stairway descending into darkness. From below came the sound of wolves crying under stone. Merwin went pale for the first time. Seraphina looked at the opening, then at Darius. The broken mate mark between them burned like a wound, waiting to be named. A voice rose from the darkness beneath the altar. Not one wolf. Hundreds. Return what was severed. The sealed stairway beneath the moon altar opened like a throat. Cold air rose from below, carrying the sound of wolves crying under stone. Not one, not 10, hundreds. Their voices twisted together until Blackmoor Hall trembled around them. Return what was severed. Seraphina stood at the edge of the broken altar, with blood running down her wrists, the silver-black wolf burning behind her, and the broken crown mark blazing over her heart. Every alpha in the hall remained on one knee. Every noble stared at the stairway, as if the kingdom itself had just opened its grave. Darius moved first. He stepped toward the darkness. Merwin shouted, "Do not go down there." That stopped him more than a command would have. He turned slowly. Why? The priestess's face was pale now. Her old certainty cracked around the mouth. Because what is buried beneath that altar was sealed before your reign, before your father's, before any living alpha in this hall was born. Seraphina's voice came sharp. Then why are you afraid like you put it there yourself? Merwin's eyes cut to her. For the first time, hatred stood naked in them. You should have stayed a quiet grave. Seraphina almost flinched. Almost. Then the wolf behind her lowered its enormous head, and warmth filled her spine like moonfire. Not dead. Not quiet. Mine. Darius looked at her, then toward the stairway. You are coming. Seraphina laughed once. Was that an order? His jaw tightened. The old version of him would have said yes. The king. The blade. The man who had watched the court force Moonblood to her lips because law was easier than doubt. Instead, he said, "No, it is the truth. Whatever is down there is calling both marks." That was worse because he was right. The half-crown on Seraphina's chest pulled toward the dark. The mark over Darius's heart burned in answer. Between them, something invisible stretched and tightened. Not tender, not romantic, but old and wounded and furious. A bond with teeth. Lady Isolde stepped forward, face white but voice steady. My king, if you descend with her, the court will say she has taken you. Darius did not look at her. The court has said many things tonight. Most were lies. Isolde's expression broke for a breath. Seraphina noticed. So did Merwin. Careful, the priestess whispered. If the cursed girl becomes truth, every woman chosen for safety becomes disposable. Isolde's eyes hardened. Not at Merwin. At Seraphina, there it was, not simple jealousy, fear. The kind bred into noble daughters raised to believe that being chosen was the only way to survive. Darius descended first. Seraphina followed because the mark dragged her, because the wolves were crying, and because every answer she had ever been denied seemed to be waiting below. The stairway spiraled beneath the moon temple, carved through black stone veined with silver. With every step, the cries grew clearer. Some sounded like beasts, some like children, some like women calling names through walls. Darius carried his sword low. His shadow wolf limped beside him, half transparent, pulled toward Seraphina's silver-black wolf as if starving. "Do not let it touch mine," Seraphina said. Darius glanced at her. "It is not trying to harm it." "I did not say it was." The silence after that was sharp. He knew what she meant. Need could wound too. At the bottom of the stairway, they entered a cavern beneath the altar. Moonstone cages filled the darkness. Inside each one lay a wolf shadow. Some were pale, some black, some silver, some broken into pieces, pacing in circles without bodies. Every cage was marked with the name of an alpha house. Seraphina's stomach turned. Darius went still. "No," he said. The word was too quiet. Seraphina looked at him. "You did not know." He did not answer. That was answer enough. Merwin's voice drifted from the stair behind them. She had followed, guarded by two priests, who looked terrified of the chamber they served. "The Severance Vault preserves the kingdom." Darius turned on her. "These are wolves. These are dangerous bonds. These are souls. These are threats," Merwin snapped. "Wolves that chose forbidden mates. Wolves that bonded across enemy bloodlines. Wolves that refused noble pairings. Wolves that would have started wars if left whole." Seraphina moved toward the nearest cage. Inside, a pale she-wolf pressed its muzzle to the bars and whimpered. A name had been carved beneath it, House Fenric. She remembered the dead noble heir. "His wolf?" she whispered. Merwin smiled faintly. "The boy's wolf tried to bond with a servant child. His father would have lost 3 alliances." Seraphina turned cold. "So you poisoned him?" "I corrected a future." Darius's sword flashed. This time, the blade touched Merwin's throat. "Say another word like that," he said, "and I will forget you raised me." Merwin did not blink. "You will not kill me while your missing half is still sealed by my blood." Seraphina felt the chamber tighten. There, the real chain. She walked deeper into the vault. The cages rattled as she passed. Wolf shadows lifted their heads, drawn to the awakened spirit behind her. The silver-black wolf moved through the aisle, like a queen returning to prisoners who knew her scent. Then Seraphina saw the largest cage. At the center of the chamber, it was made of black moonbone, wrapped in red thread, with 2 names carved into the base. Darius Vale, Seraphina Vale. Inside lay a golden-black wolf, split down the spine with silver light. Half of it looked like Darius's shadow wolf. Half looked like the spirit behind Seraphina. It lifted its head and screamed without sound. Seraphina dropped to her knees. Pain tore through her chest. Darius staggered beside her, one hand braced against the cage. The severed mate bond burned between them. Not love. Not yet. A wound. A theft. A living thing cut in half and forced to survive inside 2 people who had been taught to fear each other. Seraphina looked at Darius, tears burning with rage. "You asked what I was." His face was pale. She pointed to the cage. "I was your prison because they made me one." Darius closed his eyes. When he opened them, the king was still there. But so was the boy from the vision, the one whose wolf had screamed as it was cut. "I did not know," he said. "I know." The words surprised them both. Then Seraphina's voice hardened. "But you believed them when they said I was dead inside." Darius accepted the hit without defense. "Yes." The cage began to crack. Merwin's calm vanished. "Step away from it." The wolf shadows in every cage began to howl. The silver-black wolf behind Seraphina placed one massive paw on the floor. Moonfire spread in a circle. The cages shook. Darius looked at Seraphina. "If we break it, what happens?" Merwin answered before she could. "Every severed bond in this vault wakes. Every arranged Luna vow built on severance fails. Every alpha house loses the lies holding it together." Seraphina looked at the cages, at the trapped wolves, at the false order built over stolen souls. "Good." She reached for the cage. Darius caught her wrist. For 1 second, fury flashed through her. Then he released her and placed his hand beside hers. "Not alone," he said. She stared at him. "This is not forgiveness," she whispered. "I know." Together they touched the black moonbone cage. The severed wolf inside opened its eyes. Merwin screamed, "If you free it, the moon will demand the original vow." The cage shattered. Moonfire exploded through the vault. Every cage opened. Every stolen wolf shadow surged into the air. Above them, Blackmoor Hall cracked from altar to throne. And from the broken moon came a voice older than kings. "Return the mate that was severed, or let the crown die with the lie." The vault shattered open, and every stolen wolf shadow screamed into the dark. Moonfire tore through the severance chamber. Cages split apart. Names burned off iron plates. Shadows that had been locked for years, decades, generations, surged upward like smoke released from a battlefield. Some were whole wolves. Some were broken halves. Some were no more than glowing eyes and ribs of light. Seraphina fell back, gasping. Darius caught her before she struck the stone. For one heartbeat, his arms closed around her. She stiffened. He let go at once, even as the vault shook, even as the moon demanded an impossible vow. That mattered. She hated that it mattered. Above them, Blackmoor Hall cracked from altar to throne. The voice of the broken moon rolled through stone and blood. "Return the mate that was severed, or let the crown die with the lie." Every wolf shadow in the vault turned toward Seraphina and Darius. Waiting, Merwin stood near the stairway, face white beneath her bone mask. "Do not listen to it. The old moon is not mercy. It is hunger wearing prophecy." Seraphina rose on shaking legs. The silver-black wolf behind her burned brighter now. No longer only spirit, no longer only wound. It stood close enough that its breath moved her hair. Darius's shadow wolf crawled beside him, trembling, drawn toward her wolf like a starving thing toward fire. Seraphina stepped back. "No," she said. Darius looked at her. The half-crown mark over his heart pulsed. "I have not asked. But the moon is asking for you." His jaw tightened. "I know." She looked toward the shattered cage that carried both their names. "And if we refuse?" The old moon answered through the vault. "Then all false crowns fall." Above them, nobles screamed. A tremor ran through the palace. Merwin seized the moment. "You hear it? If she refuses, the kingdom falls. If she accepts, she becomes bound to him by a vow older than choice. There is no freedom in old magic." Seraphina's throat tightened. That was the trap. Not death. Not pain. Destiny used like a chain. Darius turned toward Merwin. "You severed us to protect the crown." "Yes. And now, the crown demands the bond returned." Merwin's eyes flashed. "Because the moon is crueler than I am." "No," Seraphina said. Both of them looked at her. She stepped toward the center of the vault, broken chains dragging from her wrists, moonblood still burning in her veins. "The moon is not cruel. It is unfinished." The silver-black wolf lowered its head beside her. Seraphina placed a hand on its muzzle. For the first time, she did not flinch from the power inside her. This wolf had not cursed her. It had protected what was stolen. It had carried half of Darius's dying soul, because no one else would. "I will not return anything because a crown demands it," she said. The vault shook. Darius watched her, still as a blade held back. Seraphina looked at him. "If your wolf wants to come home, it will not come through my obedience." Something changed in his face. Not softness. Respect. Merwin laughed sharply. Pretty words from a girl who does not understand blood law. Seraphina turned on her. "I understand cages." The wolf shadows howled. The sound became memory. The vault walls filled with visions. A Luna candidate forced to smile, while her wolf was cut from the mate she loved. A boarder Alpha made to marry an enemy daughter while his true bond screamed behind temple glass. A servant girl whose wolf was sealed because it chose above her rank. A prince whose bond was carved apart before he could name it. A child Seraphina, waking in cold sheets with a deadness inside her chest that was not death, but loneliness forced too deep to reach. The court above saw it too. Every severed vow, every proper marriage, every throne built on a wolf that had stopped howling. Lady Isolde appeared at the broken stairway, pale gold gown torn from the quake. She stared at the visions with horror. "My mother signed these." she whispered. Merwin snapped. Your mother preserved your house. She sold women into empty bonds. She made you worthy of a throne. Isolde looked at Darius, then at Seraphina. For the first time, the chosen Luna did not look proud. She looked terrified of what pride had cost her. Darius stepped into the center of the vault beside Seraphina. Not in front. Beside. My crown will not be saved by forcing her, he said. Merwin's face hardened. Then your crown dies. Darius removed the black moonstone ring from his finger, the royal seal of Blackmoor, and threw it onto the shattered cage. So be it. The ring cracked. Above them, the throne groaned. The wolf shadows surged, not attacking, but circling Seraphina and Darius in a storm of broken bonds. The moon spoke again. Then choose without crown. Darius looked at Seraphina. No command, no demand, no royal certainty. Only a man whose wolf had been bleeding inside hers for years and who finally understood that pain did not give him the right to claim the hand that carried it. I want my wolf whole, he said quietly. Seraphina's chest tightened. He continued, but not if wholeness makes you a prison again. Her anger trembled. Not gone. Never gone that easily. But it changed shape. She looked at the silver-black wolf beside her. And what do you want? The wolf turned its burning eyes toward her. For years, everyone had spoken about it. Dead, cursed, corpse, vessel. No one had asked it. The wolf pressed its forehead to Seraphina's chest, then looked at Darius's shadow wolf. The two beasts stepped toward each other. Seraphina and Darius did not move. The wolves touched noses. Moonfire exploded. Pain tore through Seraphina, but this time it did not feel like theft. It felt like a locked door opening from the inside. Darius dropped to one knee, one hand braced on the stone, teeth clenched against the same fire. Their half-crown marks burned brighter, then shifted, not into one mark, into two whole crowns facing each other. Separate. Equal. The stolen half of Darius's wolf returned to him, but Seraphina's wolf did not shrink. It rose larger, silver-black and furious, fully alive for the first time. Every alpha in the vault bowed. Not forced. Witnessing. Merwin screamed. The moonbone chains around her wrists ignited. No, the original vow should bind them. Seraphina looked at her. The original vow was choice. The old moon answered with silver silence. Merwin tried to flee up the stairs. Isolde blocked her. The chosen Luna's hands shook, but she did not move. How many women did your temple empty for my house? Merwin's lip curled. Enough to make you valuable. Isolde struck her. Not gracefully, not nobly. Hard enough that the bone mask cracked. Darius ordered the priestess seized. This time, the guards obeyed. Then the vault ceiling split open. Above, the court cried out as the black antler throne cracked down the center. Moonlight poured through the hall, revealing names carved beneath the throne base, every severed bond used to strengthen the crown. Seraphina climbed the stairs first. Darius followed one step behind. The court parted before her. No one called her corpse wolf now. No one dared. At the top of the moon circle, Seraphina turned to the hall and lifted her bloodied wrists. My wolf was not dead, she said. Her voice carried through every bond. She was holding what your crown stole. The awakened wolf behind her opened its jaws. This time, it did not scream. It howled, and every severed wolf shadow in Blackmoor Hall howled back. The howl from Seraphina's awakened wolf tore through Blackmoor Hall and woke every lie beneath the throne. The severed wolf shadows answered from the cracked moon altar, from the broken vault below, from the walls where old temple seals had been painted over with gold. Their cries rose together until the black antler throne split wider down the center. Names burned beneath it, not carved by hand, branded by suffering. Luna after Luna, alpha after alpha, servants, border heirs, noble daughters, unwanted mates, every bond severed to strengthen the crown. The court stared in horror. Seraphina stood in the moon circle, with blood on her wrists, and two whole crown marks burning on her chest, one silver-black, one pale as moonbone. Her wolf stood behind her, alive and enormous, no longer a corpse, no longer a prison for the king's stolen soul. Darius stood one step behind her, not because he was weak, because he finally understood the difference between guarding and claiming. High Priestess Merwin was dragged toward the center of the hall in moonbone chains. Her cracked mask hung from one side of her face. Still, she held herself like a woman who believed fear could become law again if she spoke loudly enough. "You think this is victory?" she hissed. "You have freed wolves that should have stayed buried. By dawn, mate wars will begin. Houses will collapse. Wives will learn they were chosen for politics, not love. Husbands will learn their wolves were emptied before vows. Children will question their bloodlines." Seraphina looked at the broken throne. "Good." The word moved through the hall like a blade. Merwin's eyes flashed. "You would burn a kingdom because you were lonely." Seraphina stepped toward her. Darius shifted as if to follow, then stopped himself. Seraphina noticed. So did the court. She faced Merwin alone. "I was not lonely," she said. "I was haunted by something you buried alive." The silver-black wolf lowered its head beside her. Its breath carried moonfire over the priestess's chains. Merwin did not flinch. "Your wolf would have died without his," she said, nodding toward Darius. "Do not pretend the severance made you only victim. It made you strong enough to survive him." Seraphina's hand closed slowly. That hurt because it was almost true. The stolen half of Darius's wolf had not only wounded her, it had fed her wolf enough to keep it from fading. A prison could become a shelter when the world outside wanted you dead. That did not make it mercy. Darius spoke from behind her, voice low. "Do not twist cruelty into a gift." Merwin smiled. "And you, my king? Will you condemn me for saving your crown when you wore it gladly?" Silence fell. The court looked at Darius. Seraphina did too. This was the moment he could become stone again. Blame the temple. Blame childhood. Blame prophecy. Blame the men and women who raised him. Instead, Darius looked at the names under the throne. "I wore a crown fed by severed bonds," he said. "I did not know the full truth, but ignorance did not make the stolen power clean." The severed wolf shadows stilled. Merwin's smile faded. Darius stepped forward, but still did not stand between Seraphina and the court. "The throne will be opened. Every bond recorded beneath it will be named. Every house that signed severance rights will answer before witness. Every forced Luna vow built on a stolen wolf will be reviewed by the moon circle." A noble alpha rose from his knees. "You cannot undo generations of marriage law because one cursed girl screamed." Darius looked at him. "She screamed because the law had her by the throat." The noble fell silent. Lady Isolde stood near the altar, one hand pressed to her bruised knuckles where she had struck Merwin. Her pale gold gown was torn. Her perfect future had cracked with the priestess's mask. She looked at Seraphina. "My mother signed rights for House Varn." Seraphina did not answer. Isolde swallowed. "I thought being chosen meant I had survived." Seraphina's voice softened, but only slightly. "It meant they made you useful." Pain crossed Isolde's face. Then she removed the moonstone betrothal chain from her neck and placed it on the shattered floor. "Then I will be witness before I am bride." That broke something in the court. Not enough to heal it. Enough to make fear change direction. Merwin saw it and moved quickly. She bit into her own thumb, drawing black blood, and pressed it to the chain around her wrist. The moonbone links turned red. Seraphina's wolf snarled. Darius drew his sword. Too late. Merwin slammed her bleeding hand onto the moon circle. "Wake the first severance." The hall dropped into darkness. Not night. Memory. The broken throne dissolved. The court vanished. Seraphina stood in a moonlit field covered with white stones. Darius appeared beside her. Not touching, not armed. Around them stood hundreds of wolves, each with a red thread tied around its throat. At the center of the field was a woman in a bridal gown, kneeling before a black-crowned alpha. Her hands were bound. Her wolf stood behind her, crying silently. Merwin's voice echoed through the field. Before there were temple rites, before there were Luna chains, there was the first woman who refused the crown. The black-crowned alpha lifted a blade. The bride looked up. Her face was Seraphina's. No, not hers. Older, fiercer, grief carved into beauty. Darius whispered, "The first severed Luna." The bride's voice filled the field. "A crown that cannot bear refusal deserves no mate." The alpha cut her bond. The red threads around every wolf burned. Seraphina gasped. as the pain of that first severance tore through her chest. Darius staggered beside her. Every stolen bond in the hall had been built from this wound. Every severed wolf traced back to this bride's refusal and the king who punished it. Merwin appeared in the memory, smiling behind them. Break the first severance, and every crown-bound mating law collapses. Keep it, and your restored wolf remains forever tied to the first wound. The first severed Luna turned toward Seraphina. Her eyes were silver black. Name me, child. Seraphina's throat tightened. I do not know your name. The bride stepped closer. That is why the wound remains. The memory began to burn. Darius reached toward Seraphina, then stopped, hand hovering. What do you need? He asked. Not command. Not claim. A question. Seraphina looked at him through the flames. Find her name. How? She looked toward the black-crowned Alpha in the vision. Ask the man who erased it. Darius turned toward the ancient Alpha. The figure lifted its blade. A dead king with no face. No name. Only crown. Darius stepped before him, golden eyes burning. I am Darius Vare, he said. Alpha King of Blackmoor. Blood of your line. Wearer of your stolen law. The faceless king raised the blade. Darius did not move. And I accuse you. The field shook. Seraphina's wolf howled behind her. The faceless king split open down the chest, and inside him was not a heart. It was a locked silver name. Seraphina reached for it. The moment her fingers touched the light, the first severed Luna screamed. Her name entered Seraphina's mouth, like moonfire. Aurelia. The field shattered. Blackmoor Hall returned in a storm of broken red threads. The first severed Luna's spirit rose from the cracked throne. No longer faceless, no longer silent, white bridal gown burning with silver flame. Every Alpha fell to both knees. Merwin stared in horror. Aurelia looked at Seraphina, then at Darius, then at the entire court. Let every stolen vow answer. The first severed Luna rose from the broken throne, and every stolen vow in Blackmoor Hall began to bleed light. Aurelia stood barefoot on the cracked moonstone, her white bridal gown burning with silver flame, red threads snapping around her wrists one by one. She did not look like a ghost. She looked like a wound that had finally remembered its name. Every Alpha stayed on both knees. Not from fear, from recognition. Their wolves knew her. Their blood knew her. The crown laws beneath their houses had been carved from what had been done to her. High Priestess Merwin stumbled backward. No. Aurelia turned her silver-black eyes toward her. Yes. The words split the air. Across the hall, every Luna chain began to glow. Around noble women's throats, around betrothed brides' wrists, around ceremonial collars worn proudly for generations. Some burned red, some cracked, some fell apart entirely. Women gasped as bonds they had never questioned suddenly showed their scars. Lady Isolde clutched her bare throat where her betrothal chain had been. I can feel it. Seraphina looked at her. What? Isolde's eyes filled with horror. The emptiness. I thought it was dignity. Merwin's face twisted. Enough. She lifted both hands, and red severance threads burst from beneath the throne, wrapping around Aurelia's burning form. The first Luna did not scream. That somehow made it worse. She only closed her eyes, as if she had endured this pain too many times to honor it with sound. Seraphina stepped forward. Darius caught her arm, then released her before she could pull away. Not alone, he said. She looked at him. This is not your wound to lead. I know. His voice was low. But it is my bloodline's crime to answer. That was the first right thing he had said without turning it into a command. Seraphina nodded once. Together, they moved toward the throne. The red threads tightened around Aurelia, feeding on the fear of every Alpha who had ever chosen law over bond. Merwin stood behind them, eyes blazing, her voice rising like temple bells. If she breaks the first severance, every Luna may refuse. Every bond will require consent. Every crown marriage will be challenged. Houses will fall. Aurelia opened her eyes, then let them fall. The hall shook. Darius turned to the kneeling Alphas. Stand if your wolf chose freely. No one stood. The silence was the confession. Seraphina felt her awakened wolf press close behind her, silver-black fur brushing her back like moonfire. For years, she had carried shame for a death that never existed. Now the whole court knelt beneath the weight of bonds they had called sacred because the women inside them had been too controlled to refuse. Merwin saw the court wavering and struck where it would hurt most. She pointed at Seraphina. Ask her what happens when the bond restores completely. Ask whether she can survive his wolf leaving her. Ask whether her own wolf remains whole without what was stolen. The words hit. Seraphina felt the fear before she could stop it. What if Merwin was right? What if her wolf had survived only because it carried half of Darius's? What if freedom meant becoming empty again? The silver-black wolf behind her trembled. Darius saw it. His face changed, not with victory, not with need, but with pain. If restoring my wolf harms yours, he said, I will leave the severance unfinished. The court erupted. Merwin laughed. The king would choose one cursed girl over the royal line. Darius did not look away from Seraphina. I would choose not to steal from her twice. Seraphina's throat tightened. She hated that she wanted to believe him. Aurelia's burning gaze softened for the first time. The first wound was not severance. Everyone went still. It was taking choice and calling it destiny. The red threads around her loosened. Seraphina understood. The answer was not to force the old bond back into place, not to return everything exactly as it had been before temple knives and crown law. That would only make the moon another jailer. She turned to her wolf. Do you want to keep what is his? The silver-black wolf looked toward Darius's shadow wolf, then back at Seraphina. No. The answer entered her chest like breath. Then the wolf stepped forward and opened its jaws. A thread of gold-black light poured from its ribs, not torn, not dragged, but released. Darius fell to one knee, gasping as his shadow wolf lifted its head and received what had been stolen. But Seraphina's wolf did not shrink. Instead, silver fire filled the space left behind. Her own power, her own soul, her own howl, buried beneath borrowed pain. Merwin screamed, Impossible. Aurelia smiled. No, unowned. Darius's shadow wolf rose fully for the first time, huge and black gold, no longer limping. It bowed its head to Seraphina's wolf. Not in claim, in gratitude. Every wolf shadow in the hall began to change. Severed halves returned where they belonged. But when a wolf did not wish to return to an old bond, it stayed apart. Some bonds healed, some broke cleanly. Some transformed into something neither temple nor crown had language for. The court panicked. Women cried out. Men clutched their chests. Alphas felt their wolves choose without permission. Seraphina stood at the center of it all, shaking but unbroken. Merwin backed toward the altar. You have ruined the order of every house. No, Seraphina said. We ruined the cage. A red thread shot from Merwin's sleeve toward Seraphina's throat. Darius moved, but Isolde was faster. She seized the thread with both hands. It burned her palms bloody, but she held on. For my mother, Isolde said through clenched teeth. For every woman House Varn sold as virtue. She pulled. The thread snapped. Marvin stumbled. Aurelia lifted one burning hand. All the red threads in Blackmoor Hall turned toward the priestess. For the first time, Merwin looked truly afraid. No, she whispered. I preserved the crown. Aurelia's voice rang through the broken throne. You preserved refusal by burying it alive. The threads wrapped around Merwin's wrists, throat, and chest, not killing her, holding her in the shape of every vow she had forced on others. Seraphina stepped close. You will not die tonight, she said. Merwin's eyes widened. You will listen, Seraphina continued, to every bond you severed, every bride you emptied, every wolf you locked in the vault, every girl you called cursed because her soul would not obey your law. Merwin shook her head. Mercy? No, Seraphina said. Witness. The red threads dragged Merwin before the broken throne and bound her there. Aurelia turned toward Seraphina. Now comes the final vow. Darius stiffened. Seraphina felt the mate bond between them stir, not healed, not demanding, but waiting. The broken moon above the hall opened, revealing a silver path between their two wolves. Aurelia's voice softened. The first severance is undone, but the crown still demands an answer. Will the restored bond become law or choice? Every eye turned to Seraphina, then to Darius. The Alpha King looked at her, And this time he did not ask the moon. He did not ask the crown. He did not ask his wolf. He asked her, "What do you choose?" The question broke Blackmoor Hall more deeply than the shattered throne. "What do you choose?" Darius asked it before the broken moon, before every kneeling alpha, before the first severed luna, before the priestess bound in the shape of her own cruelty. But he asked Seraphina, not the crown, not the wolf, not the old vow. Hea. Seraphina stood in the center of the moon circle with blood drying on her wrists, the silver-black wolf alive behind her, and every eye in the kingdom waiting for her answer, as if her mouth had become law. That almost made her laugh. For years, those same mouths had called her corpse wolf, dead bond girl, cursed vessel, a grave wearing a woman's skin. They had waited for her to prove she was empty. Now they waited for her to fill the kingdom with meaning. She looked at Darius. His black gold wolf stood whole beside him now, powerful and breathing, but it did not reach toward hers. It waited. The king did the same. For the first time since Moonblood touched her lips, nothing was pulling her by force. That frightened her more than chains. "I choose not to answer for the court," Seraphina said. Murmurs moved through the hall. Darius did not interrupt. Aurelia watched from the broken throne, silver fire burning quietly around her bridal gown. Seraphina lifted her chin. "I choose not to become law because the moon needed a woman's pain to correct a king's crime." The broken moon pulsed overhead. The mate bond between her and Darius shivered, not breaking, not binding. Listening, Merwin laughed hoarsely from her red thread prison. "There. Even now, she refuses the sacred vow. She will leave the crown bleeding." Seraphina turned toward her. "No, I refuse to let the crown call my surrender sacred." The hall went silent. Then Lady Isolde stepped forward. Palms still burned from breaking Merwin's thread. "Then what becomes of the restored bonds?" Seraphina looked at the wolf shadows across the hall, some reunited, some separate, some trembling near the humans they had once been forced to serve. "They choose." A noble alpha snarled, "Wolves do not choose above bloodline." His own wolf shadow turned its head and growled at him. The man went pale. Aurelia smiled faintly. Darius looked at the noble. "Say that again, and say it to your wolf." The alpha lowered his eyes. Seraphina felt the strange pull between herself and Darius deepen. Not command, not hunger, something slower, more dangerous because it did not demand, only revealed. He had changed in front of her, not enough to erase what he allowed. Enough that she could not pretend he was only stone. That made anger harder. She hated that too. The broken moon lowered a single beam of light between them. It touched the shattered royal ring Darius had thrown down earlier, then split in two, one path to him, one to her. Aurelia spoke. "The original vow can be remade only by refusal freely survived." Darius looked at Seraphina. "Then refuse me." The court gasped. Seraphina's eyes snapped to him. His voice stayed steady, though she saw the cost beneath it. "Refuse the bond before witness. If it survives refusal, it is no longer law. If it dies, then it was never choice." The mate mark over his heart burned. Seraphina understood. He was offering to let the bond be tested by the one thing the first crown had punished. "No. A woman's no." Merwin's face twisted. "Idiot boy. If she refuses, your restored wolf may tear apart." Darius did not look away from Seraphina. "Then my wolf will learn not to live by stealing yes from pain." The words struck her breathless. Her silver-black wolf lowered its head, listening. Seraphina stepped closer to Darius until the beam of moonlight touched both their faces. The hall held still. Even the wolf shadows stopped moving. Darius's gaze stayed on hers. Not pleading, not commanding. Waiting. Seraphina spoke clearly. "No." The mate bond snapped tight. Darius dropped to one knee with a strangled breath. His wolf roared, black gold fire tearing through the hall. Seraphina's own wolf screamed behind her, not in grief but in force, holding the bond back from devouring them both. The moon turned red. Alphas shouted. Isolde moved toward Seraphina, but Aurelia lifted one hand, stopping her. Darius pressed one fist to the stone, blood dripping from his mouth. He did not reach for Seraphina, did not command her to take it back, did not ask the moon to soften the refusal. He endured it. Seraphina watched him shake beneath the force of a bond denied for the first time in its life. Something inside her broke open. not pity. Respect. The bond screamed again. Then it changed. The red moonlight faded into silver. Darius's wolf rose slowly, wounded but alive. Seraphina's wolf stood taller, unclaimed, and bright. Between them, the severed bond did not vanish. It reformed as a silver thread lying on the ground between their feet, not wrapped around their throats, not burned into their skin, waiting where either of them could step toward it or away. Aurelia's voice filled the hall. The first refusal has been witnessed. The red threads binding old vows snapped across Blackmoor. Women cried out as chains fell from their wrists. Men collapsed as wolves returned pain they had buried under pride. Noble houses felt every forced bond loosen at once. Marwyn screamed, "You have broken Luna law!" Seraphina turned toward her. "Good." Darius rose slowly. His face was pale, but his eyes were clear. He faced the court. From this night forward, no Luna vow is valid without refusal heard first. No mate bond may be sealed unless both souls survive the right to say no. Any house that hides severance rites will answer before the moon circle. A noble lord shouted, "You cannot rebuild law from a cursed girl's refusal." Darius stepped aside and looked at Seraphina. "Not using her. Making room." Seraphina walked forward. "Then rebuild it from your fear. That is what you have always done." The noble fell silent. Aurelia's spirit began to fade, but her eyes stayed on Seraphina. "You have not ended the old wound. You have opened it cleanly." Seraphina swallowed. "Is that enough?" "No," Aurelia said. "But it is the first honest pain." Then the first severed Luna turned to Darius. "Your crown has been spared because it learned to kneel. Do not make her teach it twice." Darius bowed his head. "I hear you." Aurelia dissolved into moonfire. Her last red thread burned away above the throne. For one breath, peace almost entered the hall. Then the severance vault below groaned. A cold howl rose from beneath Blackmoor, not wounded, not freed, but furious. Merwyn stopped screaming. She smiled. "You freed the bonds," she whispered, "but you forgot what was sealed beneath them." The moon circle cracked open again. From the vault below came a giant wolf shadow with no body, no eyes, and a crown of broken mate rings embedded in its skull. Every restored wolf backed away. Darius drew his sword. Seraphina's silver-black wolf stepped in front of her. The creature below opened its mouth, and 1,000 stolen vows spoke as one. If love may refuse, then what becomes of all who were forced to obey? The thing rising from the severance vault was not a wolf. It was what remained when too many wolves were forced to obey. A giant shadow climbed through the cracked moon circle, its body made of torn bond threads, broken Luna chains, burned wedding ribbons, and old vows spoken through clenched teeth. A crown of shattered mate rings pierced its skull. It had no eyes, only hollow darkness where sight should have been. Every restored wolf backed away. Even Darius's black gold wolf lowered its head. Seraphina's silver-black wolf stood before her, but its fur bristled with fear. The creature opened its mouth again. If love may refuse, then what becomes of all who were forced to obey? The words moved through Blackmoor Hall like cold hands. Women began to sob, not loudly, quietly, as if their grief had been trained to ask permission. Lady Isolde stared at the shadow beast with horror. "What is it?" Merwyn smiled from her red thread prison. "The obedient." Seraphina turned toward her. The priestess's face shone with cruel satisfaction. Every bond that stayed because it had no choice. Every Luna who smiled while her wolf screamed. Every alpha who called possession devotion. Every child born from vows no soul consented to. You broke refusal open, little corpse wolf. Now obedience wants to know whether its suffering meant nothing. The obedient stepped into the hall. The moonstone floor blackened beneath its paws. Darius raised his sword. "Stay behind me." Seraphina's eyes snapped to him. He caught himself. Pain crossed his face. "No. I know what you mean," she said, but she stepped beside him anyway. Not behind. Beside. The obedient turned its eyeless face toward them. Its body shifted, and inside its shadow Seraphina saw flashes, a bride standing silent at an altar, a Luna drinking sleep herbs before a forced mating, a servant girl carrying a child whose father never asked if she wanted him. A nobleman weeping as his wolf was chained to a woman he did not love. Not all victims were women. Not all monsters knew they were monsters. That made the wound uglier. Seraphina's throat tightened. It is not here to kill us. Darius's grip on his sword tightened. It is killing the hall. A pillar cracked as the shadow passed. Noble houses screamed and scattered. The creature did not chase them. It moved toward the broken throne, drawn to the place where obedience had been called sacred. Seraphina followed. Darius cursed under his breath and followed her. The obedient lowered its crowned head over the shattered royal seat. 1,000 voices poured from it. We obeyed. We endured. We stayed. We bore heirs. We called it honor. If refusal is freedom, what were we? The hall went silent. No one knew how to answer. Seraphina did not either. That frightened her more than the creature. The first severed Luna had taught refusal, but refusal could not heal those who had never been allowed to make it. If Seraphina called obedience weakness, she would wound every soul who survived by staying alive inside a cage. She looked at Darius. He understood. His voice was low. We cannot cut this. No. We cannot force it down. No. Merwin laughed. Then let it eat your new law. The obedient turned toward Seraphina. Its mouth opened. Answer. The command struck her chest. Her wolf snarled, but Seraphina lifted one hand. No. The creature stilled. Darius looked at her. So did the court. Seraphina stepped closer to the shadow beast. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she kept walking until the cold from its body frosted her skin. I will not answer for all of you, she said. The obedience crown of rings rattled. Seraphina's voice shook, but she did not stop. I know what it is to survive inside a lie. I know what it is to be named dead because no one wanted to hear what was still breathing. The shadow lowered its head. But I will not call your obedience weakness, she said. And I will not call your suffering meaningless. A woman in the court began crying harder. Isolde lowered her head. Darius looked at Seraphina as if each word cut something open in him too. The obedient spoke again. Then what are we? Seraphina swallowed. Witness. The word passed through the hall. Not like thunder, like a door opening. You are witness to what happens when choice is stolen, and survival is mistaken for consent. The shadow trembled. For the first time, the broken mate rings in its crown stopped bleeding black light. Darius stepped forward then. Seraphina looked at him sharply. He did not stand in front of her. He stood with her. I am witness too, he said. The hall froze. Darius faced the creature, then the court. I wore a crown strengthened by obedience. I benefited from vows I never questioned. I allowed a girl to be forced to drink Moonblood because the law told me her humiliation would reveal truth. His gaze moved to Seraphina. I was wrong. The words did not fix anything. That was why they mattered. The obedience body shook harder. Isolde stepped forward next. Her voice trembled. I was raised to become Luna by being pleasing enough to survive. I thought obedience made me powerful. It made me useful to people who never asked what I wanted. She removed the last gold pin from her hair and dropped it on the broken floor. I am witness. One by one, others spoke. A noblewoman named the mate she had been forced to abandon. A border alpha confessed his wolf never chose the Luna beside him, and the Luna beside him confessed she had known and stayed because refusal would have ruined her sisters. A servant woman spoke of a child born from a vow she never wanted. An old alpha admitted he had called his wife loyal because she stopped asking him to love her gently. Each confession struck the obedient like silver rain. The shadow shrank, not vanishing, changing. Merwin's face twisted. Stop. Stop giving it language. Seraphina turned toward her. That was always what you feared. The obedient looked at the priestess. 1,000 voices whispered. Witness us. Merwin screamed as the red threads binding her pulled tight, dragging her toward the shadow beast. Darius moved, but Aurelia's fading moonfire flashed from the broken throne, stopping him. Not death, the old moon whispered. Memory. The obedient bowed its crowned head to Merwin. Every ring in its skull opened into a tiny silver eye. The priestess was forced to see. Every bond she had severed, every woman she had emptied, every man she had trained to call control protection, every child born into a house built from stolen yes. Merwin's scream broke into sobs. The obedient did not devour her. It marked hair. A black ring burned around her throat, not choking, not killing, only making silence impossible. Every time a forced vow was named, she would hear it. The shadow beast turned back to Seraphina. What becomes of us? Seraphina looked at the broken throne, the freed wolves, the women with fallen chains, the men who could no longer pretend they had not benefited from obedience. You become the law we cannot ignore. The obedient lowered its head. Its crown of broken mate rings dissolved into silver dust. Then its huge shadow body split apart into hundreds of wolf shadows, each one carrying a different scar, a different grief, a different choice waiting to be reclaimed. They did not bow to Darius. They did not bow to Seraphina. They walked into the court and stood beside the people who had finally named them. Darius exhaled like a man who had been holding his breath for years. Seraphina nearly collapsed. He reached for her, stopped, and asked with his eyes. She hated how much she needed the permission he did not take. Slowly, she nodded. He caught her before her knees hit stone. This time, she let him. Above them, the broken moon brightened. For one breath, Blackmoor Hall felt almost alive. Then Seraphina's wolf looked toward the far wall and growled. The Moonblood altar began to crack. Beneath it, a hidden chamber opened. Inside stood a cradle made of black silver, and within the cradle lay a sleeping child with Seraphina's half-crown mark burning over his heart. The child in the black silver cradle should not have been alive. No one moved. The Moonblood altar had split open beneath Blackmoor Hall, revealing a hidden chamber no priest had named, no noble had claimed, and no alpha had admitted existed. Inside, under a veil of cold silver light, lay a sleeping boy no older than 4. His hair was dark, his skin was pale, and over his heart burned the same half-crown mark Seraphina carried beneath her torn robes. Darius went still beside her. His arm was still around her waist from catching her, but his hold had turned rigid, almost afraid. Seraphina pulled away. This time, he let her. She stepped toward the cradle, every wound in her body forgotten beneath the terror rising in her chest. Her silver-black wolf moved with her, low and silent. Darius's black-gold wolf followed, but did not pass her. The boy did not wake. A thin red thread ran from the cradle into the cracked altar, then down into the broken severance vault beneath the hall. Merwin, still bound in witness thread, began to laugh. It was not victory. It was despair wearing teeth. You opened every wound, she whispered. Now look at the one I kept closed. Darius turned on her. Who is he? Merwin's eyes moved to Seraphina. Seraphina's blood went cold. No, she said. The priestess smiled faintly. You carried more than half a wolf, corpse girl. The hall blurred. Seraphina reached the cradle and gripped its black silver edge. The child's face was peaceful, too peaceful, like a body held in sleep by magic instead of rest. His small hands were curled over his chest. Around one wrist was a moonbone bracelet, carved with 2 names. Seraphina Vale, Darius Veir. The court erupted. Lady Isolde covered her mouth. Darius crossed the distance in 3 strides, then stopped beside Seraphina, as if the air around the cradle might break if he breathed too hard. His voice was barely sound. What is this? Merwin answered softly. Insurance. Seraphina turned, shaking. What did you do? The priestess's gaze sharpened. When the severance failed to kill your bond completely, it created an echo, a child of moonblood, wolf, soul, and stolen vow. Not born from flesh, born from the bond they cut apart. Seraphina looked back at the sleeping boy. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might tear through her ribs. A child, not hers by body, not his by body, and yet the mark on the boy's chest called to her like pain, recognizing its own shape. Darius stood frozen. For the first time all night, he looked completely lost. Merwin's voice lowered. If the bond between you was ever restored by choice, he would wake. If it remained severed, he would sleep forever, feeding the Moonblood altar and stabilizing the crown. Darius's face went deadly pale. You used a child to hold my throne together. I used what your bond created. Seraphina's wolf snarled, and the cradle shook. The boy whimpered. Seraphina's anger vanished beneath fear. She touched his small hand. The moment her fingers brushed his skin, a memory opened. A chamber of moonlight, Merwin standing over the cradle. Isolde's mother placing the bracelet on the boy's wrist. Darius, younger, unconscious during a blood moon rite. Seraphina, a girl, sleeping in a cold temple room with silver chains across her chest. Their blood never touched, but their severed wolves did. The stolen half of Darius's wolf and Seraphina's silenced wolf wrapped around the empty cradle, screaming as temple magic forced their pain into a living shape. The child opened his eyes in the memory. Merwin whispered, "Sleep, little crown. Hold the lie until the cursed girl dies or the king obeys." The vision broke. Seraphina staggered back. Darius caught the cradle edge, not her, as if he feared touching her without permission, even in horror. She looked at him. "This was made from us." His eyes burned. From what they did to us. The difference mattered. The sleeping boy stirred. The red thread, connected to the altar, pulsed. Merwin's voice cut through the hall. "If you wake him, the crown loses its final seal. Every severed child, every bloodline echo, every false heir created by temple law will answer. If you leave him, Blackmoor survives." Darius laughed once. It was a terrible sound. Blackmoor has survived by feeding on sleepers. He reached toward the thread. Seraphina stopped him. His eyes snapped to hers. She shook her head. "Not with a sword." Darius looked at the thread, then at the child. His jaw tightened, but he stepped back. Seraphina bent over the cradle. Her wolf lowered its massive head beside her. Darius's wolf stood on the other side, black gold eyes fixed on the boy. The child opened his eyes. They were silver. Not hers. Not Darius. His own. He looked at Seraphina first, then Darius, then the broken throne. His small voice entered every bond in the hall. "Am I the lie?" Seraphina's chest broke open. "No," she whispered. The boy's eyes filled with fear. "Then why was I made?" No one answered. No one knew how. Seraphina climbed into the hidden chamber and knelt beside the cradle. "You were made by a lie. That does not make you one." The red thread tightened. The boy cried out. Darius moved, but Seraphina lifted one hand. "Wait." He stopped. The court watched him obey her silence. Seraphina placed both hands over the boy's mark. "What is your name?" Merwin shouted. "He has none." The boy flinched. Seraphina turned toward her, voice like moonsteel. "Then be silent while someone gives him the dignity you stole." She looked back at the child. "You may choose one." The boy blinked, confused. No one had ever told him that. Darius stepped closer, voice rough. "Names do not have to be earned." The boy looked at him. For one breath, something passed between them. Not fatherhood, not ownership, something more fragile. Responsibility, without claim. The child whispered, "Aaron." The red thread cracked. Merwin screamed. Seraphina smiled through tears. "Then wake, Aaron." The boy sat up. Moonlight exploded from the cradle. The final seal beneath the throne shattered. Across Blackmoor Hall, hidden marks appeared over men, women, children, servants, nobles, anyone whose lives had been shaped by severed vows. Some marks glowed bright, some faint, some broken. Court stared at itself and saw the cost of its own bloodlines. Aaron climbed out of the cradle and stood between Seraphina and Darius. He did not reach for either of them. Instead, he looked at Merwin. "Why did you make me sleep?" The priestess's mouth opened. No answer came. The witness ring around her throat burned black. For the first time, Merwin's silence condemned her. Then the broken moon above the hall opened fully, silver light pouring down over Aaron's small body, Seraphina's awakened wolf, and Darius's restored beast. The old moon spoke one final command. "Name every child born from stolen vows." Aaron looked up at Seraphina. She looked at Darius. His face was pale, but steady now. "No more hidden chambers," he said. "No more sleeping seals," she answered. Together, they turned toward the court, and every marked person in Blackmoor Hall began to glow. Every marked person in Blackmoor Hall began to glow, not with the same light. Some marks burned bright as moonfire, some flickered weakly beneath skin, some appeared over hearts, some across wrists, some at throats where vows had once been forced. Nobles looked down in horror. Servants stared in disbelief. Children clung to mothers whose own marks had awakened beside theirs. The old moon's command rang over them all. Name every child born from stolen vows. Seraphina stood beside the black silver cradle, Arn between her and Darius, her awakened wolf towering behind her. For years, the court had called her a dead thing. Now the entire hall looked like a graveyard, learning it had living children inside it. Aaron looked up at her. Are they like me? Seraphina's throat tightened. Some of them. Were they made from lies too? Darius answered before she could. His voice was low, rough, and honest. Some were born into lies. That is not the same as being one. Aaron looked at him for a long moment, then nodded as if trying to understand a world that had kept him asleep because waking him would have cost powerful people too much. Merwin remained bound before the broken throne, the witness ring around her throat pulsing black. Her face had lost its temple calm. Every time a mark lit in the court, her body flinched as if the truth had teeth. Lady Isolde stepped forward first. A pale mark glowed over her wrist. My mother was bound by severance before she married into House Varn, she said, voice trembling. I was raised to believe obedience was noble because she had no other language left. The mark on her wrist brightened, then settled. Not gone. Witnessed. A servant woman near the lower arch began to cry. My daughter was taken after the moon rite. They told me she was born without breath. A tiny girl across the hall gasped as a mark lit over her heart. The woman turned. The girl turned too. For one breath, neither moved. Then the child ran. The woman fell to her knees and caught her with a sound too broken for words. The hall changed after that. Not healed. Never that quickly. But opened. Names began to rise. Onebi one, Arin, Mira, Solin, Vea, Thorn, Isolde's mother, Elian Varn, the servant girl's daughter, Leora. A border boy born from a severed treaty vow. A noble son whose wolf had belonged to a hidden mate line. Children who were not lies, but proof of lies, survived. With every name, the marks softened. With every confession, the broken moon brightened. Darius walked to the cracked throne and placed his sword across the shattered seat. The court fell silent. No child of Blackmoor will be hidden again, he said. No bond will be cut for alliance. No Luna vow will stand without refusal witnessed. No priest, alpha, bride, or council house will decide that silence is consent. Merwin laughed weakly. You think law can survive that much choice? Darius looked at Seraphina before answering. No, he said. Old law cannot. The words landed like a final stone breaking through ice. The black antler throne collapsed into ash. No one screamed. They watched it fall. Seraphina expected triumph. Instead, she felt tired. She looked at Aren. He stood small and barefoot beside the cradle that had held him prisoner, staring at the ash where a throne had been. What happens to me? He asked. The question struck the hall harder than the moon's command. Darius stepped forward, then stopped. He looked at Seraphina, not asking permission to own the answer, asking whether she wanted to stand in it with him. Seraphina knelt before Aaron. You will not be a seal. Darius lowered himself on one knee beside her. You will not be proof. Arn looked between them. Then what am I? Seraphina touched his small hand. A child. His face broke. The old moon above Blackmoor Hall softened into silver light. Merwin made one final sound. Not anger, not fear. Something emptier. Defeat, perhaps, or the first taste of all the voices she had forced into silence. The red threads binding her tightened and pulled her toward the opened severance vault. Darius rose. Where is it taking her? The old moon answered through every restored wolf shadow. To hear what she made. Merwin screamed as the witness threads dragged her below, not to death, but to memory. Every severed bond, every forced vow, every sleeping child, every woman who smiled through chains, every wolf cut from its chosen soul, she would hear them until the last hidden name was restored. Seraphina watched without pity. Mercy did not always look soft. Sometimes it looked like making the guilty listen. By dawn, the Moonblood altar was empty. The vaults beneath it stood open. The names from the throne base were read aloud by the houses that had profited from them. Isolde removed her gold bridal mantle and placed it beside the broken Luna chains, choosing witness over reward. The alphas who had knelt from force now remained kneeling by choice while their wolves stood beside them, no longer trapped behind old law. Darius did not put on his crown. He carried it to the moon circle and set it on the floor between himself and Seraphina. where the silver thread of their restored bond still waited. "I will not ask you to take this," he said. "Good." His mouth almost moved. Almost, "I will not ask you to forgive me tonight." "Good." "I will not call the bond destiny if you call it wound." Seraphina looked at him then. The Alpha King, who had allowed her humiliation, still stood before her. That truth had not vanished, but so did the man who had refused to steal from her twice. The man who had let her no break, the old vow. The man who now stood crownless before a court that had expected him to command her into place. Aaron slipped his small hand into Seraphina's. Her wolf lowered its head beside her, alive, whole, and hers. Darius's black gold wolf bowed to it once, then stepped back. Waiting, Seraphina looked at the silver thread on the floor, then at Darius. "I do not choose you as king," she said. "I know. I do not choose the bond because the moon repaired it. I know. I choose to leave it waiting." Darius bowed his head. "Then it waits." The thread did not break. It did not bind. It remained between them, quiet as moonlight. Seraphina took Aaron's hand and walked toward the open hall doors. The court parted before her, not because she was Luna, not because she was cursed, not because the moon had made her sacred, because every wolf in Blackmoor knew what she had carried and survived. At the threshold, she stopped and looked back. Darius stood beside the broken throne, crown at his feet, wolf whole at last, eyes on her but not holding her. "Where will you go?" he asked. Seraphina looked toward the moonlit courtyard, where the first snow of dawn was falling. "To wake the children still sleeping under your laws." Darius lowered his head. "Then I will open every door." She did not thank him. Not yet. But she did not refuse the answer. Seraphina stepped into dawn with Aaron beside her, and her silver-black wolf at her back, no longer the cursed girl with a dead wolf, no longer a prison for a king's stolen soul. She was the woman who drank Moonblood, woke what they buried, and taught Blackmoor that a bond without choice was only another grave. The end.